Okay, welcome to the Rink podcast. Thanks everybody for listening. Today we have a great interview. We have Marin Hickox, who is the VP of girls and women's hockey at Hockey Canada. It was a wonderful conversation we had with Marin. What do you think, Puff?
It couldn't be more timely as far as women's hockey. It's never been in a better place. Very exciting times with the launch of the PWHL. And it's a changing environment she's working in because Hockey Canada used to sort of have total control over the women's game in the country. And now with this new professional league, it's going to be interesting how that all plays out. And she'll be a big part of it.
Well, having known Marin for a long time, I know they're under great leadership there. So that'll be really great. But I had a question for you before we got to the interview because it's timely. We're in the holiday season, and with the girls' national hockey team, but a junior team, and then the men's junior hockey team the tournament that's about to start. I had a question for you that I wanted a little clarity on before.
Okay.
So I know that there was tryouts and they just announced the team, but then there's prelim games now, and it feels like that all happened in a 24-hour period. So what my question is are there people trying out for that team, kids trying out, and they're just sitting there and they're like, you're on the team and you're off to Sweden right now? Is that how that works?
Well, so the way they do it is they in the normal cycle, I mean, there's been a bit of a difference with COVID and stuff and tournaments popping up in the summer, but usually it's the normal thing is there's a summer evaluation camp that they invite, I'm not sure the exact number, but say 40, 50 players get invited to that camp. And then they have the pre-tournament training camp that usually takes place in about, early-ish to middle of December. Okay. And that's another invite only. And sometimes players who aren't invited to the summer one, but are having great years, they get invited to the one. And obviously some kids don't. If there's returning players, they're usually kind of going to make the team. Yeah. And there's usually a few kids that you're like, okay, he's going to make it. But there's a lot of players that are on the bubble and a lot of decisions are made in that short period of time. Right. And from a stress level, I think guys I know that have been through it, it's some of the most stressful days of their life because it's not like you have multiple opportunities at this and maybe only one or two shots to make this team. And it's such a big deal for young players in the country. So, you're competing against every one of these kids is one of the best players on their team. And it's probably been one of the best players on their team their whole life. And this sometimes might be the first time these guys have ever not made a team. So it's a crazy experience for them. And then especially when it's over in Europe, you go through this whole thing and then all of a sudden it's like you're on a plane and you're in Europe maybe for the first time in your life. So it's a pretty whirlwind experience.
Well, speaking as someone who didn't make any teams and totally absorbing failure, I hope they'll navigate it through great. But joking aside, I think it's would be incredible to be someone that just you're off to Sweden right now, and then you go, and then there's lots of moments of stress through that for sure as you're leading into that. But what an exciting time for them. But anyway, let's jump into it. Let's jump back to our interview today. Like I said, we have Marin Hickox, who is the VP of Girls and Women's Hockey from Hockey Canada. Great interview with her. Let's head over to that interview right now. Okay, today we have a guest who's basically the Wayne Gretzky of empowering women and girls in hockey. Picture this, a hockey puck had a fairy godmother. This would be our guest. She defines the word sport, but in all honesty, she comes by it naturally because it's in her blood. She'll even tell you that. So her path gives her experience that expands the MLSE, NHL, and now is the Vice President of Women and Girls Hockey at Hockey Canada. Please welcome to the pod from Port Credit, Ontario, Marin Hickox. Welcome, Marin.
Thank you. Wow. That was like some intro. Holy smokes.
I'll be honest. Puffy does these great intros for our guests. And I was like, I need to show up with a really good intro. So I actually did spend some time on it. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Awesome. Yeah. Can't wait.
So Marin, tell us a bit about where you got your passion from hockey and sports in general.
It's a loaded question, and I know we don't have that much time. You said it in the intro. Sports definitely has been something in my DNA. I am the product of a two-time Olympian. My dad, was in canoe kayak, There's just my sister and I, and we were always part of sports. It's just been our lifestyle. So we grew up, it was need to learn how to swim, need to learn how to skate, need to learn how to ski, all of the basics, growing up in Canada. And it was just an active life was just always something that we had a part of. Truly, as a kid growing up, I took it for granted. Didn't realize that, kids didn't always have an opportunity to participate in sport. It was something that I was truly very fortunate about. Sports all through high school, field hockey, skiing, soccer, canoe, kayak, like you name it. It was something that I just wanted to get involved in. And it really did, teach me some incredible lifelong skills. When it came to the time to university and, sort of choosing the next path, I wasn't going to be a next Olympian. Sure, I was a good athlete, but I was certainly not in that top echelon. And I just knew that I really liked sports. I liked events just generally. And I was like, if I have to get paid to do something for my career, let's just look at it. 1996, the Atlanta Games were kind of like the big start of sponsorship. We saw, and, that's me aging myself again, but, 1996 was a dramatic, like you saw the Cokes everywhere and you saw, the Panasonics and everything. And I was like, man, you could work for actually brands and get into sponsorship inside of things. So I just sort of started tinkering around. And I was like, if I'm not going to go to the Olympics as an athlete, maybe I can go to the Olympics, behind the scenes. And thus just sort of started on a trajectory into sport business side.
Cool.
Awesome.
Very cool.
As the VP of Women and Girls Hockey, can you share with everyone what is your mandate and what does success look like?
Wow. These are like two questions off the hop that are just completely like loaded. I love it.
Coming in hot.
Just get into it. So new role. I joined Hockey Canada in May of 2022. Brand new role with women and girls focus as well as safe sport. I liked this opportunity. I'd never worked in an NSO before. I think, Grant, you had said, I'd worked for profit with MLSE and with the NHL. Coming over to an NSO was something totally different. So I'm going to take you back for a minute. Why would I join an NSO? And my mandate, it was a blueprint that I could just create. And so I liked that I was getting into a job that I was allowed the keys to just develop it. We knew that it's an exciting time in sports, just broadly, basketball, soccer, hockey, just to name a few. And I thought we've had incredible success in Canada with our women's hockey team. But when we started to look at even what is happening at the grassroots level, the exact same emphasis and I think just focus hadn't been there like it had been in high performance. So when I took the job, I just said, listen, you're going to have to give me the keys. And I really want to start talking. And so for the first 6 months, it was a complete listening tour. I wanted to understand what's happening in Gander, Newfoundland. I wanted to know what's happening in Victoria, BC, all the way to Ontario, where we have an incredibly rich history of the Ontario Women's Hockey Association. NSOs really are the national governing body, but we don't directly impact kids and development. It's the likes of the local hockey associations. Right. And so for me, my mandate is to expand the opportunities for all kids across Canada. I want to expand the entire hockey ecosystem. So taking a look at getting more women leadership in coaching, officiating, bench management, but really just to take a true look at the structure of hockey and make sure that we are meeting the needs of girls, because you are all, fathers of boys, as am I, mother of boys, but it's boys and girls are just dramatically different. And just because something is, set up in a way, it might not have been created with a girl's needs in mind.
Right on. That's a really good answer. Actually, knocks out one of the further questions we had about what was some of your vision for growth and development for later, but you answered that really well. So because you've had such a successful career that it has taken you on this path, and now you get to look back, and now you said you dated yourself a bit with some dates there. If you could go back and tell your younger self, some advice as you were embarking on this sports career, what would that, advice you would tell younger Marin about what's coming and what to prepare for?
I've been asked this before, and I would say it still changes, because if I could get back into 18-year-old Marin, I would say really trust your gut. When I would get into any type of competition, whether it was, field hockey or at a regatta and whatnot, certainly there were nerves, but I just had a fire that was within me that I was like, I'm going to go through that wall. And there were some things that have happened when I, came into a boardroom. And I don't want to say because I've entered into a male-dominated, industry, right. But I think that was something, that was certainly true, working in sports and working in sport business.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Really just to trust my gut, to know that I have the skills and the confidence, and I can do it. And I think going back and not second guessing myself as much. Oddly, those are still things that I want to tell my 45-year-old self.
Right.
Just continue to trust your gut, do the work, and the results will come. And oddly, that's kind of like what happens with you tell athletes, do the work. I know you've talked to Cheryl, and I'm sure Cheryl would have said the same thing. If you stay motivated, you put in the practice, you do the right things, the results will naturally come. So I think, trust myself and know that I'm in the place that I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, that's great advice. I always say to people I work with, luck favors hard work too. So, that's exactly what I think you're saying. Well done. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, got a bit of it.
Well, it's a very exciting time in the women's game with just over a week in the launch of the PWHL. What role or change do you think the new league will have in hockey culture?
Guys, I love these questions, honestly. So the PWHL is it's a pinch me moment. It's been a long time coming, and for me, it represents where we are in the world. We are it's no longer an afterthought. There was times when I was getting into business where it was do you bet on women's sports? Do you invest in it? The ROI is not there. Puffy, you work in broadcast, it's what is can we get it on television? Are people going to come? The guesswork is gone because society has shown up and says that, yes, we're ready for it. And, there's companies that are backing it. Certainly broadcast media is backing it. And I think just us as a whole, it's no longer I'm not going to go and buy a ticket. I want to go and I'm there. For me and, in my job, I could sit back right now and I know that just the PWHL alone is going to get girls to pick up a stick and want to join their local club. I truly believe in the see it, be it. It was something that, I got to meet Jana Hefford a long, long time ago. She played hockey. My sister played hockey with her. And there were things that, Cheryl, Jana, Vicky Sonahara, Haley Wickenheiser, there's people that they were just trailblazers, truly. Well, that same thing is happening now. And now there's a platform for them to stay. And it's going to be sustainable. I truly, truly believe that it's not going to be us sitting here, a year from now or even 5 years from now. We're going to be looking at expansion. We're not going to be looking at it folding. And there's been many leagues before that have taken on the task and truly laid the foundation for where we are now. But they didn't have that financial backing. And I think, as we've said, we see it in soccer with Project 8. In Canada, we are seeing it with the WNBA and Toronto and Canada are ready, and there's been moments in time with hosting, a preseason game and then hosting, and seeing in soccer with Christine Sinclair. It's not hockey. It's just generally the world is ready for this. So it's super, super exciting. And I bought my tickets. I'm ready to go January 1, in Toronto, as a fan, not even as a Hockey Canada executive.
Yeah. Right on. Well, I'm certainly excited for it too. And I when the announcements were coming out, I didn't even second guess it. This is exciting. I thought it was really cool. And we talked about it a couple of times over the last little bit. In particular, looking forward to seeing how the jerseys evolve as well. Not only seeing how the game evolves there, because I think there's some really great opportunities there with the brands of each of the team too.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting, and I'm just gonna riff off of that for a minute. The jerseys are an interesting piece. They got a lot of heat.
They got a lot of heat. We talked about it. Right away.
Yeah. And I'll give you a little peek under the hood. I've have experience in licensing, and certainly, these getting the right partner, getting the right manufacturer, and getting the right, product for the ice. We're talking like it's 2 years out, like these like Winter Classic and jerseys, they're not just like, oops, we're making it. Like, the teams that are participating in a couple weeks, that creative has been years in the making.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing with the PWHL. They could have waited and they could have just said, like, let's just hold. There's been some speculation about what the teams were going to be and whether or not that was a good thing or a bad thing. But, it was a little bit of a, let's just do a litmus test.
Yeah.
I give them credit. Why would you wait? Like, get going, and now we all know as a collector, like whatever comes out this year is going to be vintage. It's like a bit of a collector's item, right? And let's see what happens on the ice naturally. Sure. They would have loved to have had everything baked, but you know what? The timing was right, and let's just get at her.
So I agree. And, it's an exciting time as we've talked about with the backing of, with the PWHL coming out and all the things that are happening. But, just looking the other way, what challenges do you see for the landscape of women's hockey, and what strategies are you maybe trying to implement or thinking about inside your organization around that?
Yeah. So there's going to be a couple ways that I'm going to answer this. So first, from a national team perspective, we were their one-stop shop. So we have 23 athletes that are carded national team athletes, the likes of Marie-Philippe Poulin, and 22 others. And then we have a next generation group that's, the next gen, they're above our U18 group. But we're talking like elite, national team athletes.
Yeah.
So we were their everything. We were where they came for training. We were there for their funding. We were there for their physicians, international competition. Now we're getting into a unique place where they're not under our jurisdiction 365 days of the year, and they are professional athletes. And so, it's how does the role of the NSO, right now we've got, USA Hockey, Hockey Canada, Czech team, and Swedish team that are represented in the PWHL. Right. They are going to be first and foremost, they're a professional athlete now that are going to then come back and put on the Team Canada jersey, much like their counterparts do sometimes in the NHL. We want to make sure that as Hockey Canada, there's still a pride for them to come back, that they do want to continue to, play for Canada, in international competition. So that's one thing. That's from an elite standpoint. From another standpoint, Canada has typically has not cracked 90,000 participants in women and girls hockey. That's been over the last 13 years. We have what's called a Hockey Canada registry. I'm sure you both as parents have had to register within your kids within their leagues. As an NSO, we are ahead of the game in a lot of other national sport organizations in that we do track data. Yeah. And we know. So as I've said, we haven't hit really over that 90,000 mark. We are doing that this year, which is a positive. Why I bring this up is there is an incredible amount of sanctioned hockey and unsanctioned hockey. And to not try and complement or confuse, I should say, everybody listening to the podcast, there are those programs that are insured underneath Hockey Canada. And then there are programs that, maybe haven't been part of and fit into somebody's lifestyle, where you start in September and you end in March, but you are going to participate in a program that is a 6-week program. It's just run out of a Canlan Arena and specific for women and girls. So my mandate is trying to work within those organizations so that you might not be a traditional girls hockey team or a girls program, but these unique, unsanctioned, I'm going to say because they're uninsured by Hockey Canada, are still great programs, and they're fitting a need. And so I would like to continue to explore, how we open up the umbrella and how we see that those girls are still hockey players. They're still, should be part of like the entire culture, because I can certainly learn things from those programs. And I just think it can't just be a one size fits all anymore. We've got to really start to look at Canada and the changing demographics and just what everybody needs. Somebody might not be able to play sports for 8 months in the year. It's just not realistic to everybody, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't still be afforded the opportunity.
Well, that's great that Hockey Canada is starting to think like that, because I think that's been a criticism for Hockey Canada over the years, is that they're pretty rigid in what they want, and they want it done a certain way. And so that's a great sign that there's some changes happening.
I think humble approach is probably a nice thing. Certainly that, you asked at the beginning, like, why join? What was the mandate? All those things. These were some of the conversations that I was having, in the interview process is, it hasn't necessarily been a focus before, but if these are all things that we need to start to look at if we are truly going to be evolving the game and fit the needs of specifically, a girl's demographic.
That's perfect. So we know the importance of role models in sports is undeniable. Who are some of the inspiring female figures in hockey that young players can look up to, and how can their stories positively impact the next generation?
These are amazing. So, certainly I think it's important that girls have role models. I think as we start to evolve and, as people have certainly seen with Captain Canada, I've talked about her already. I think this is girls, boys, men, women, everybody that's in there can see the athleticism and the modesty that comes with Pooh. She has, certainly cemented herself as somebody that, attracts all ages. We have a lot of young up and coming kids that, I say kids because they're under the age of 18 and I'm clearly not. That are really starting to get into it. I really like to look at, who are some of your coaches? Who are some of your female role models? You've seen that, a Jana Hefford, talked about her already. She's, was a player. She was a player before there was a professional league. She just did it for the love of the game and has now continued through color commentary and has started into, now just a really undeniable, desire to create a professional league. I looked at Cassie Campbell Pascal, who, for myself was, again, the first person to be first female to be color commentator. And what you're seeing from all of these generations is that they did it for the love of the game, then they continue to evolve, but they're always giving back. And so I don't look at one necessarily as to, the role of our high performance athletes. There's an unwritten rule in women's hockey that you do it for those that came before you, and you're doing it for those that have yet to arrive. And it's a really unique, because money was not the issue. Money was the issue. It was you're just doing it for the love of it. And so it's a difficult question to say one out of a many, but certainly it's really everybody that has picked up a stick.
Yeah, right on. So this podcast, as you know, has a focus on the GTHL. Yeah. So how does Hockey Canada collaborate with organizations like the GTHL to ensure a cohesive and supportive structure for female players in that group?
Yeah, really great question. So as I said, from the hop, you've got an NSO, and then we report and work directly with the PSOs, so provincial sport organizations, and TSOs, and territory sport organizations. And each of those provincial members then has the relationships with the grassroots. So in this case, it's the Ontario Hockey Federation that then has a connection to the Ontario Women's Hockey Association. The GTHL is one of them, the Alliance, the OMHA, plus. So Ontario is a really unique, and I'm giving a bit of an education lesson here, but it was something that I had to learn. In every single province of our wonderful country, there is one provincial sport organization. In Ontario, specifically in hockey, there are three. Okay. We have Hockey Northern Ontario, we have Hockey Eastern Ontario, and we have the Ontario Hockey Federation. We are certainly the biggest, of participants here in Ontario, and it's just been the way that it's just operated. Women's hockey has typically fallen directly into the Ontario Women's Hockey Association. I'm sure everybody has heard the name Fran Ryder. She has been around. She's a pioneer of the game. She's been around with Hazel McCallion back in the 70s and 80s. Frankly, she was still involved with running the Ontario Women's Hockey Association when my sister Randy was playing, and Randy is 43. And so, you can do the math. She's just been around for a really, really long time. The Ontario Women's Hockey Association has been the place that Hockey Canada works directly with on women and girls programming. That does not mean that girls don't play in the G. And that they don't coach in the G or even officiate. But typically, and this is up until, even like my coming in, all of girls hockey was directed to the Ontario Women's Hockey Association. We are starting to work a little bit more collaboratively, listening and learning, so that my mandate again is to understand what kids need across the board. So there are a lot of parents and kids that say, like, I'm going to go into the boys hockey, which truly is actually co-ed hockey, go into that route before they come, into a girls only game. So that's a really long-winded answer to say that, typically we've gone to the OWHA, but again, we're starting to see, and I want to be understanding and learning more from the kids that are playing in the G, because they're having a similar experience than some of the kids that are playing in BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, et cetera. There just hasn't had I'll be honest, I think the person to start to initiate some of those conversations.
Perfect. Looking ahead, what are the key milestones or aspirations that Hockey Canada has for the future of women's hockey, and how can the broader hockey community contribute to achieving these goals?
Love these questions. In the immediacy, I need to break 100,000 participants. Right. I'd love to be able to see that we've got 100,000 registered participants in girls hockey. I think we all can agree that there needs to be some more education and destigmatized that girls hockey is somehow slower, somehow not as competitive, than a typical a boys game. I want to make sure that, again, I don't need to say it's not a zero-sum game. And I think that's a big thing, that ice equity seems to be a big issue that comes up right across the board. There's a lot of grandfathering that comes in with hockey. It's like Joe Smith's team has been renting the same ice for 40 years. Therefore, Joe Smith just seems to get it for the next 40 years. Well, that's not going to be able to grow the game for everybody. That doesn't mean that you have to take away from another team to give, somebody the opportunity. But, ice equity and ice issue is something that is topical. But, it seems to be a hockey-centered conversation. But I think if you asked kids that participate in ringette or kids that participate in speed skating or figure skating, they would also say that they're not getting, great ice. So the greater hockey community, I think, be open-minded, recognize that it's in all of us to give all kids a positive opportunity. I think to be a little bit more receptive to kids and women that are getting into officiating and coaching. I think we all can check ourselves, at times when the stands can get really passionate. Why does somebody not want to come back and officiate? Well, maybe because they were getting yelled at, or there's a fear factor of coaches behind the bench, unnerved that they don't know and they're going to be somehow criticized for their performance. I think just everybody needs to also recognize, sports should be like drinking water. Everybody just wants to have an opportunity to participate, but therefore it should be fun. We don't have to be so critical of, an 8-year-old's game or a 9-year-old's game or a 10-year-old, come back to just having the fun of it. So, I'd say also looking at, hockey community needs to look at their municipalities and their provincial, legislation and federal government. We need more facilities. Right. Frankly, we need to get more things out there. That is something that Kathy Henderson and I are starting to do. We're going to go to government. We're going to start to talk about that, because that's sadly, it's something that I, in my role can't control, because as I just said, Joe Smith's hockey team just goes straight to the same guy at the rink, and just gets the same ice. So we have to start looking at policies from a federal, provincial, and regional level to start even the playing field a little bit more.
Right on. Great. Well, listen, we're coming to the end of the interview, Marin, and we really appreciate you coming on. But if you've listened to the pod before, we always ask our guests the same question at the end, which is, what is your favorite pump-up song? So when you're about to hit the ice, or even if you have a big presentation or something, you're putting something on to make you, get up and move, what is that song?
Yeah, so in the true spirit of girl power, I will be honest. I love a good Swiftie. Nice. She doesn't get me. She's
Sean and I are right there
on the
with
stage.
you.
Oh yeah, she's great.
Yeah, right. So a Swiftie, a Beyonce is in there, but I got to go back to my good old Canadian girl in Shania Twain. Was lucky enough to see her in concert last summer, and our national team used her song "Giddy Up" in the Worlds. So "Giddy Up" is definitely on the top on the playlist. She's just gotta love Shania, and we might have fallen to our evil enemy, the Americans in the World Championship gold medal game. Shania just continued to fire us all up.
Right. She's like everyone's cool aunt, is what I feel.
Yep.
It's like Shania.
Totally.
Right? Someone said that to me once, and I thought that landed right.
Perfect. Yeah. Gotta love like good old Thunder Bay. So she's a good old Canadian.
Yeah. For sure. Well, listen, Marin, really appreciate you taking time out to join us today on To the Rink. Thanks for all you do, and really appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, guys. I can't wait to get you out to a Team Canada event or a game, and certainly we'll see you at the rinks in the PWHL. That'd be awesome.
For sure.
Yeah, sounds great.
Right. Thanks, guys.
So much.
Thanks, Marin.
Okay, well, that was awesome. Shania Twain. Hey, who doesn't like to hear a little bit of Shania? She's come back in a big way.
Big time.
So I could see the dressing room, boys and girls, firing up some Shania before and after a big game.
Yeah, giddy up. We really want to thank Marin for making the time to join us. I think that was a great interview.
She's fantastic.
Shed a ton of light on what's going on over there, and it sounds like it's in really good hands for the future of women's hockey for sure.
Well, it's big. I mean, I know Hockey Canada has come under a lot of scrutiny over the last few years, and deservedly so. But you can see there's some real change happening there, and in a positive way. And I think that it could only be better for players and coaches and officials and everyone dealing with hockey.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate her coming on. So, Puff, I think we're at the end of it. End of the season. That is Christmas season. We're off. You got any big plans? I know you're coming over for dinner. That's it.
Yeah, we're coming over for dinner. Yeah, no, we got some family stuff that we usually do, traditional stuff up at Tanya's parents.
Okay. Yeah.
And then it's World Juniors for me. It's a busy time.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're always busy at this time.
And so I'm working Swedish hours, so early mornings, but evenings off, so can't complain. Yeah. So it's a great tournament. This year's tournament. Yeah, this tournament's going to be unbelievable. The U.S. team, watch out. They're good.
Okay, good. Well, everybody have a happy holiday, holiday season, because I'm not too sure when this will be released. Happy New Year. We'll see you soon. Marin, thanks so much for joining the pod. And please listen to us on Apple, on Spotify. Follow us on Instagram or look us up on YouTube. Stuff. We really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.